Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode, another week, another thingamabob, the whole thing of Vicky's Dungeon.
Welcome!
Oh yeah, welcome to another episode, another week, as I've already said. Let's get a hey yo, Scott Hall.
Hey yo!
Oh yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, man, just another week, dude. If you're watching the live video feed, you'll notice that I have the lights on for this week. I just didn't want to, almost fall asleep in a darkened neon room. So I thought I'd go for, just a cleaner, lighter video quality of the show itself. And, yeah, regardless, I hope you still enjoy it. Hope you still enjoy it, as Brody said, with plenty of
Positive energy!
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this week we'll just ramble some more, like we always have been doing recently, and we'll play some Killer Gnome for some break segments. And yeah, let's get into the first segment. Let's get into Game of Thrones stuff.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die.
Oh yeah, thank you, Cersei Lannister. This week with Game of Thrones consumption of things, I tend to just always think about the Targaryen dynasty. You know, I've talked about it before on the show that that's the dynasty, or rather that's just the main part of the Game of Thrones, I guess, like mythos that I'm the most fascinated with. That's the part that I love the most, because it's just, I don't know, like that's just the aspect of the whole universe that's the most intriguing / alluring to me. Like, it's the one part that makes me just so interested in it. I mean, of course I love all the other stuff, don't get me wrong, but I would say the bulk of the love for the Game of Thrones universe for me personally has to come for the Targaryens. You know, it's totally for that group, and the Blackfires. But I suppose outside of that, my favorite stuff outside of that is probably I mean, I love reading about like pre-Westeros. You know, I hope that after we get Fire and Blood Part 2, that maybe we can get a book that tells the story of the Westeros kingdoms before they were conquered. You know, just because I would love to hear that kind of fictional history, mainly because we do know that they were independent kingdoms for thousands of years. And on top of that, they were constantly warring with each other. There was always a war going on in Westeros of some kind. And we know that the North was pretty much its own kingdom for thousands of years. And that there was a time where it was hundreds of petty kingdoms. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, for the few thousand years prior to Aegon's landing, or Aegon's conquest, whatever, the kingdoms were, you know, just as they are when as we see them in the series, aside from the Kingdom of the Rock or the Kingdom of the Islands and Rivers being one kingdom in the time of Game of Thrones, and right after the Targaryens landed in Westeros, that of course became two kingdoms, turning into the Kingdom of the Riverlands and the Iron Islands. The Riverlands passing to the Tarleys, and then not the Tarleys, the Tullys, and then the Kingdom of Islands being given to the Greyjoys, you know, selected by one of their own, by one of the Iron Island. Because I know in the Iron Islands they pretty much select their own ruler, at least with every. I think, I'm not sure if that's actually just a show thing, because in the show we see that. In the show, we see everybody making their claim to be the next Iron Island, like king or, you know, lord of the Iron Islands. But also, and other people can make their claim, I'm pretty sure, outside of the Greyjoys. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like if it's a kingdom where they choose their own king, and yet it's been the same family for like hundreds of years at this point, at the time of the main series, I guess that means that, I'm guessing that means that they stick with the same family, but they choose who from the family to lead them, I'm guessing. Maybe it's kind of like a mixture of like a monarchy and a democracy on some level. Not really sure. But I would love to just hear more about that kind of ancient history of Westeros. Just kind of, hear about the specific wars fought between different kingdoms. I'd love to, honestly, I'd love to get like a full, detailed timeline of the dynasties of each kingdom before the Targaryen kings. Specifically, I mean, the main emphasis of my interest goes towards the Stormlands. The Storm Kings have always been the lineage of kings, and I guess the kingdom that's always been the most, I guess, compelling to me. It's always seemed really intriguing, and I don't really know why, but it is. That being the Storm Kings and also the princes of Dorne. I've always been really interested in those two kingdoms specifically. The other ones are really cool, don't get me wrong, and I'd love to read about the different kings of winter, because the kings of winter, they were the dominant kings in the north for thousands of years before the time of the Starks, or before the time of Game of Thrones. So I would really like to read more about those guys, for sure. But, I'm not really sure what other books we're going to get outside of Winds of Winter. I'm pretty sure we'll get Winds of Winter. I'm just not really sure, to be honest. But I'm just not sure if we're going to get much else outside of that. I could see Winds of Winter and probably Fire and Blood Part 2, but outside of those two, I'm not really sure. Not really sure. I'm hopeful, though. I'm hopeful. I try to be optimistic with all that. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the main that's what my mind has been on recently. And also just, like, of course, reading about the Targaryen kings. And I'm continuously surprised that it's, like, only 17 of them. I mean, I know that they were the kings of Westeros for 283 years, I believe. So that makes sense that it would be 17 kings, roughly. But at the same time, I kind of wish that lineage lasted longer, just because I'm always interested in each of the kings and each person from that family. I kind of wish that I'm always intrigued of, like, what would have happened. I feel like the biggest what if in Game of Thrones, like, I feel like the biggest what if in the Game of Thrones fandom is what would have happened if Aerys II wasn't overthrown. Because if he wasn't overthrown, then we wouldn't have gotten, the Baratheons on the throne. We would have still had the Targaryens, and I'm not really sure what would have happened afterwards, but I think it's pretty safe to say that by the time of Game of Thrones, the Targaryens would probably still be ruling, probably under the reign of Rhaegar. And I mean, a lot of people say, from, like, looking at Rhaegar as a character and how people in the universe viewed him and all that stuff, a lot of people think that he would have been a pretty solid king. Not perfect, but pretty solid, And I could see the Targaryens ruling for a while after Aerys if Rhaegar took over. But at the same time, keep in mind that the Targaryens, regardless of who was in power, their power was in the decline. Like, ever since they lost their dragons, the Targaryens they lost, like, their main source of power. And so as a result, of course, like, just over time, it was just inevitable at that point that they were going to get overthrown, because the whole realm was, like, held together, and it was a much more peaceful place and everything, because of the Targaryens. But not everybody liked them, and not everybody liked that they were, these kind of foreign people. They didn't like their marriage practices, which is understandable, if I'm honest. And on top of that, like, it's not like they had great rulers all the time. I would say the majority of the Targaryen rulers ranged from, like, okay to really good, but there's definitely a few of them that weren't great at all, to the point where probably the population as a whole, by the time of Aerys II being king, most of the population, I would say, weren't fans of them anymore. And they just kind of had the opinion of the Targaryens of just, like, you know what? These guys really aren't as scary as, like, we think they are. Like, they don't have their dragons anymore. They're just kind of people like us at this point. Like, it's not really a question anymore of, like, how can we defeat the dragons? It's really just a question of, like, who can raise the largest army and who can defeat them on the field in a conventional medieval setting. Like, it's really just, it went from just, like, okay, we can maybe beat them if we kill their dragons, but it's really unlikely, to just, like, well, their dragons are gone, and we already don't like them enough already, And since their dragons are gone, I really think at this point, all we need is just a big enough army or just a good enough military strategy by traditional standards to overthrow them. And, it's not like Robert's Rebellion was the first rebellion against the Targaryens. There were plenty of rebellions against them before. Even Rhaenyra Targaryen, probably had the most effective one, of course, that being the start of the Dance of the Dragon Civil War. But the difference between Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra's war and Robert's Rebellion is that Rhaenyra was a Targaryen, so it really didn't matter who was going to win. Both sides were Targaryens, so either way, a Targaryen was going to end up on the throne, and it wasn't really a case of the Westerosi people rising up against the Targaryens. And yeah, Rhaenyra technically wins. Her son ends up on the throne after that war. But it really was a war of the Targaryens, and that's why it was so evenly matched, because they were the only ones in possession of the dragons. I mean, the Velaryons had dragons as well, but they were the less powerful family. I think the only people in the Velaryon family that had dragons were Rhaenys Velaryon. I mean, she was a Targaryen before she became a Velaryon, but regardless, Rhaenys Velaryon. You also had I forget his name. I think it's not Luke Harry's. It's Laenor Velaryon. He also had a dragon, I believe, and also Laena Velaryon had a dragon as well. A bunch of the Velaryons do, but the bulk of them, of course, are in the hands of the Targaryens, and also the Velaryons and the Targaryens, are kind of like they're really close packed allies for sure. Even if the Velaryons dared to go against the Targaryens would probably still win. Even though Rhaenyra had the support of the Velaryons, it wasn't enough for her to, just defeat the other Targaryen branch easily. Anyways, what was I going to say? Yeah, but with Robert's Rebellion, that's at a time where the Targaryens don't have dragons anymore, and they don't have really anything other than just kind of tradition on their side at that point. So that's why the combination of that, along with pretty much everybody else in the realm hating Aerys Targaryen because he was a crazy king, those two things put together, along with just this very slowly penting up kind of discontent towards the Targaryens over hundreds of years, I would say is pretty much why Robert won the rebellion. Like, I mean, keep in mind, it wasn't like he easily won it. Like, it definitely was very hard won. But at the same time, I think the main reason why he won that war was the reasons I just suggested, which is, everybody already hates Aerys. They don't have the dragons anymore. Pretty much, you can only win by standard traditional military tactics at this point, and pretty much at least half the realm was against him. And, so that's why you have, I believe, the Vale that's on the side of you have the Vale, and then you have the Riverlands, you have the Stormlands, and then the North. You have 4 out of the 7 kingdoms going. Well, I mean, it's 9 kingdoms technically at this point, but the Iron Islands stayed neutral, I'm pretty sure, and Dorne stayed neutral as well. The only kingdoms that fought for the crown at that point were the Crownlands, it was the Crownlands, and then you had the Reach, and then the Westerlands. And keep in mind, the Reach and the Westerlands are probably the richest kingdoms of all of them, because the Reach was kind of the main source of food for the continent. With that was just the place where the ground was most fertile, and also the Westerlands is the home to the Lannisters, who are by far the richest people in the realm. So yeah, and then you also have the Crownlands as well. So yeah, I mean, and also the bulk of the I would say. Yeah, well, either way, like I would say it was like roughly evenly matched. I mean, yeah, it's 4 kingdoms against 3, but at the same time, when you look at the geography of Westeros, the north is like right above the neck, which is like the thinnest part of Westeros, and so to get your forces down through there is a little tough. And I don't think the Freys actually were on the side of the family of the Freys were not on the side of the rebellion, and the Freys supported. I'm not sure if they supported the Targaryens, but they weren't supporting the rebellion either, at least. And so because of that, the Freys, of course, being the family that are in charge of the bridge called, like the bridge castles called the Twins, which in Westeros is this basically to get through the neck a part of Westeros. I think it's just called the Neck. You have to cross this one river, and above, you have to cross it no matter what. And it's treacherous and deep enough that you can't just like easily swim over it or whatever. The only kind of reliable way to get over it is you have to cross the Twins. And the Twins is a huge bridge, and at each end is a fortified castle. And it serves as kind of just the home of House Frey. And to get across it, you have to pay a toll. And I'm guessing they didn't support the rebellion enough to allow any of the northern forces to pass, at least for a time. So that along with the North and the Vale being above the Neck, made it difficult. So the only kingdoms that really had active forces to kind of disperse or whatever onto the battlefield were the Riverlands and the Stormlands. So you really didn't have a whole ton. But anyway, it's pretty interesting stuff. Me personally, if I had to say like what would have happened if Robert lost the rebellion and the Targaryens were not overthrown, I would say it's pretty safe to say that Aerys would have been assassinated at some point at the very least. He would have been poisoned or something along the way. I don't think he had much time left at that point. And like, sure, the guy was super paranoid and would like refuse to leave the Red Keep, and like he had constant guards all the time. Like, yeah, but at the same time, it was pretty much inevitable that he was going to go pretty soon. Either he was going to get assassinated in some way, or probably his madness would have just made him have like some kind of heart attack or stroke or something, and he would have just died. I don't really know, because the guy was like, incredibly paranoid and like mood swinging all the time and stressed out just all the time, thinking everybody was against him. And, that can do a lot to you. So that just only makes sense to me. But anyway, I think that personally, Rhaegar would have done a really good job probably as king. I don't think he would have been as good as like Daeron II or Jaehaerys, but I think he would have been pretty solid. But honestly, I think that maybe the Targaryens would have lasted another, maybe, I'm going to say like 50 or 100 years on the throne. Like not a whole lot of time ahead of them compared to the time before them. And I think eventually they would have been overthrown or just replaced by some better heir or something like that wasn't a Targaryen. And yeah, just something like that would have happened. And so it's pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting stuff. I feel like maybe it definitely would have been Rhaegar and then Aegon the Sixth Targaryen, who, it's tough to say if that would have been either a Targaryen Aegon, like the one in... Cool, the lights just shut off. I'll stick with it. It's tough to say whether or not the Targaryens would have continued on in that sense. But I'm just curious if it would have been Aegon. Because there's kind of some plot holes in the books a little bit where we are pretty sure Rhaegar was going to name his kid Aegon. And then it's pretty obvious that Jon is Rhaegar's son. And so Aegon might be Jon's real name. But then we meet another Aegon who's most likely just a Blackfyre who calls himself Aegon. So I'm curious if that Aegon would have been who we know as Jon Snow, or if it would have ended up as... I'm not sure, like... a different Aegon. I don't know. We're not really sure what Jon's real name is going to be in the book. I think it's not going to be Aegon just for the sake of practicality, because we already have an Aegon in there. And I get it. There's multiple Aegons in the whole mythos of Westeros. There's so many of them. Like if I tried to name all of them, I would probably name at least like 10 notable ones, because you have Aegon the First, and then you have, well, just the Targaryen kings alone, we have 5. We have 5 Targaryen kings named Aegon. And then we have Aegon in the book. And who else? We had another Aegon who was killed by Maegor the Cruel, I believe. There's at least 8 right there, like characters just named Aegon. And also, we have at least 8. There you go. But I feel like when it comes to like actually having like the main cast of characters. I think it's just practicality-wise, having two of them name the same thing would be really just, yeah, not just two of them being named the same thing, but both of them being Targaryens at the same time. I don't know. I think a lot of people are saying that Jon Snow's true name might be Aemon after Aemon the Dragon Knight, which I'd be fine with. I think that'd be pretty cool, actually. I would prefer it because I've heard the name Aegon enough in all of the Westeros history that I'd be really happy to hear just a different name, even though we already have Aemon the Dragon Knight. Just to hear Jon be called Aemon, or perhaps a new Targaryen name that we haven't heard before, or a Targaryen name that's been more obscure and we don't really hear it a lot, like Vaemond or Aemond even. I know there's Aemond One Eye, who we know is Aemond from House of the Dragon, but still, man, still. But yeah, that's about it for all my Game of Thrones kind of talks for this week. Not really much, honestly. It's going to be a short and sweet episode this week. I'm just going to do about an hour just because I'm super tired. But pretty cool stuff, man. Pretty cool stuff. What else? I guess let's cue in Gandalf for Lord of the Rings talk. Here we go.
You shall not pass!
Oh yeah, thank you, Gandalf. Yeah, in terms of Lord of the Rings this week, I've been interested in reading the Silmarillion for sure. I definitely want to read that. I have to finish the first 3 books, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm definitely interested in reading more about just Fingolfin as a character. I talked about him last week being the Elven King that fought Morgoth and permanently injured his leg, which is a pretty cool story. And I think it was right outside the gates of Angband, which was the fortress of Morgoth, deep in the north of Middle-earth. I think it's not even in Middle-earth at that point. I think it's in Arda, but I think it's so far in the north that I'm not really sure if it's considered even part of like Middle-earth, because I think Middle-earth is just one part of Arda, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I would love to just see more about Fingolfin for sure. If there's more adaptations or whatever done in the Peter Jackson universe, I would love to just get more about Fingolfin or just the ancient deep lore, you know. But I did kind of realize recently that, you know, as much as it's cool that we're getting all this content, like so much content, in our favorite universes, and we can see a lot of our favorite characters, you know, come to life. At the same time, I kind of miss it just being lore to read, and that's all you had. And because of that, it built up so much hype and just love for this stuff. Like, you know, I remember, I sound like an old man, but like, you know, it's not that long ago. I remember watching Game of Thrones before that series was even done when I was 16, and I remember finishing it and then getting so into reading about the lore, and it was so just cool to me that the one Targaryen character in the series, I mean, we have Maester Aemon, and I think that's the only other Targaryen, actually. I mean, yeah, Jon's the Targaryen, but regardless, it was so interesting that when I would see Daenerys Targaryen, and then I would read about like the kind of the lore of Robert's Rebellion that sets up the Game of Thrones universe, and I would see Daenerys being the only just kind of like proper looking Targaryen, you know, the long silver gold hair, and on top of that the just that distinct Targaryen look, and how she was the only character that looked like that, and how she was the daughter of this dynasty that ruled over Westeros for hundreds of years. And that huge and heavy of a backstory really just made reading about all the Targaryen kings before the series came out just so much more compelling and so much more interesting. And of course, yeah, I wanted a lot of it to be brought to life, but at the same time, I think just like the fact that all I had was just like the books and my imagination to imagine what they looked like outside of fan art, obviously, it just made it so much more, I guess, enchanting and entrancing to read about. And I'm excited to see more stuff for sure. Like I remember watching Dunk and Egg, and when they first were mentioning like the Blackfires, like the first time they mentioned the Blackfires in that show, like my heart dropped. I was like, whoa, like these are characters I've been obsessing about for years, dude, like years. And now and all they were was just faded in obscurity because, yeah, they're mentioned in the Game of Thrones books, but they're not mentioned in, like, they weren't mentioned in the show at all. They weren't mentioned in House of the Dragon, obviously, because the Blackfire Rebellions happen, I think, roughly, like 50 years after the Dance of the Dragons. But yeah, when I first heard in Dunk and Egg, the blacksmith say to Dunk, like, Daemon's war is over. I was like, whoa, they first met. That's the first time someone's even mentioned the Blackfires at all. It's just, that. And, well, not at all. Like, of course, Egg mentions the Blackfires, I believe, in the second episode when he is pretend fighting, and he goes, "Do you yield, Blackfire bastard?" And so there's that. But somebody mentioning Daemon Blackfire for the first time maybe go like, oh my God. And also just seeing characters like Baelor Breakspear and Mykar on screen together was really cool too, because those are the two guys that fought in the battle against the Blackfires that ended their rebellion. So that was super interesting for me to just see and just to know, like, I would see this living, breathing person on my screen and just go, that's the guy that, like, fought Daemon Blackfire, like, face to face. And, we haven't seen Gwaine Corbray yet on screen. I'm not sure if he lives or dies during the Blackfire Rebellions. I don't know if he dies after the duel he had with Daemon, but regardless, as much as I would love to see more stuff adapted from the Game of Thrones universe and also the Lord of the Rings universe, I honestly kind of like watching the Peter Jackson movies and just kind of, like, I love seeing, I guess it really comes to mind when I'm watching, like, The Mines of Moria, and when Gandalf just says that when they first hear the Balrog and see its shadow, I love that all we get is him just saying, "It's a Balrog, a demon of the ancient world. This foe is beyond any of you." And that's it. And I mean, we know the history of all the Balrogs, at least most of them. And I just think the fact that all you can go towards after hearing that line and seeing the Balrog in Moria, all you can really go to if you want to learn more is just pretty much the Silmarillion or the appendices in the Lord of the Rings. And of course, it's not like a low amount. Like, Tolkien was known for writing immense amounts of lore. Like, the Lord of the Rings is just, I would say, is honestly just like a small piece of his entire legendarium. But at the same time, as much as I think it would be so cool to see that stuff adapted, I love the idea. I just love the fact that it could be, but it isn't. And therefore, what we have is so much more cool because it's what you have. Maybe this is a weird comparison, but it's kind of like, I remember watching this video about kind of how we live in a culture where there's too much content, there's too much just stuff. And, I'm in total agreement of it. Like, there's too much TV, there's too many new TV shows, there's too many spin-offs of those TV shows, there's too many movies, there's just too much everything, man. Constantly stimulated to the point where, like, I remember even today, I was, like, scrolling through YouTube looking for something to watch, and I remember thinking, man, if I was, like, my, 10-year-old self, and I was given all the content that I'm looking at right now and that I feel no interest for, if I gave that version of me this iPad in my hand with all this content on it, he would go crazy. But instead, I think also one small aspect is just getting older. But the fact that I'm just so used to constantly being stimulated all the time, most of the videos I was looking at, I just wasn't really interested in. And it just kind of made me sad. And so that video I was watching that talked about it, I remember the guy talked about how when he was a kid, they would have, like, only a certain amount of movies, just the DVDs that they had on the shelf. And maybe they had like 10 or 20 or whatever. And and yeah, of course they wanted more than that because it's human too. But the fact that like that's all they had, instead of having like HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, instead of having like a bunch of streaming services or even just one that has like hundreds of pieces of content on it, the fact that all they had was just these like 20 movies and then cable TV, made them just like really appreciate what they actually had, and they would watch. And I mean, I can draw from my own experience. Like whenever I was in that same situation when I was a kid, and that was when I enjoyed movies, music, books, everything the most. And I think probably the biggest part of it is you're a kid and everything is cool because you're growing up and learning about the world, and your brain is a literal sponge. But at the same time, I think the fact that like I would look at my bookshelf and I would only have like, 10 or 20 DVDs right there. Whenever I would get a new one, it was like Christmas, man. It was like, oh my God. And I would just watch it over and over and over again. And it just was awesome. I had so much more fun, I think, then. And so that's why, like, I think to myself when it comes to Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or anything that I'm a fan of, and I'm just like, man, like, I want to see a series on the Blackfire Rebellions, or I want to see a series on Fingolfin, or I want to see, I want to see whatever. There's a voice in my head now that's becoming more and more present that really is just saying, you know what, this would be cool. But at the same time, because I am so depleted of like dopamine from being constantly stimulated all the time, I know that I'm not going to enjoy this as much as I probably should be. And it's kind of sad, And so I would recommend to everybody just kind of slowly, I would say, try to live a life where it's more analog. I was watching actually another video of a guy who said that he lived in a very much like analog sort of way still, where there's not just constant connection and constant, stimulating content all the time for him. And he says that he loves it. He loves it. And I would honestly treat it the same way. I would just make sure that this is just what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to have like chunks of my day now just with nothing, no TV, music, nothing. I think the only kind of type of, I guess, content, to me, there's a difference between art and content, but bear with me. I think the only thing that isn't content to me is reading, reading novels, poetry, anything where it's a physical book or even just a book on my iPad where you're just sitting in silence and reading. That to me is the only type of content that I allow myself to consume as much of as I want to, because it's a much less, it's much less comfortable and much more challenging form of art, especially today. Like I'm used to watching TV or Instagram Reels or YouTube videos or podcasts, whatever, and having it much more easy to consume. Whereas when I read a book, I have to like really make sure I'm like really soaking in everything to fully get a picture in my head of what's going on. And doing that in complete silence makes it, to me, an entertaining and challenging experience that is ultimately beneficial for the brain. As somebody who was very kind of worrisome about getting Alzheimer's later in his life, that's one of the things I try to do to hopefully prevent it in some way, or at least to kind of slow it down, make it creep in at a later date. But either way, I feel like reading is one of the few types of, I guess, entertainment that it doesn't hurt to do more of it. It doesn't hurt. You can do a ton of reading every day, and I feel like it's at least more beneficial than any other kind. I think that, and also like playing like team sports or, just stuff that you already know is going to be beneficial to you, whether you like it or not. So, playing sports, working out, meditation, or reading, or just learning a language, stuff that if you find fun, it is something that is not only joyous in that kind of way of being beneficial, but beneficial in a way that it actually helps you in some way in your life. It expands your boundaries, expands your horizons in life. So I try to do that now, especially with me being about to turn 25. I try to prioritize my time a little bit better, and I try to just engage with stuff that if it's purely for entertainment, I try to see if it can be beneficial in some way. And, of course, I'm okay with also, and I let myself engage with kind of the equivalent of junk food when it comes to entertainment here and there. Like, I'll just sit down and and just kind of watch like a mindless TV show for a while. But most of the time, I'm not saying I've succeeded and I'm in the habit of it now, but I'm trying to get there by, whenever I, watch like TV or movies, I try to like see if there's a movie on like my movie list, to watch, or a TV show on like my TV binge list to watch that I want to binge all the way through, on my bucket list of art to consume. I try to at least do that. Or I try to do stuff like reading or working out or something like that I would enjoy doing, but would also be at least somewhat beneficial to me, even if I didn't like doing it. And so that's why I try to just read more now, because I just want to read more. There's like I wouldn't say like my book list is enormous. It's roughly probably 30 to 40 books that I want to read in my life right now. And I'm sure that list will grow. And it's probably I think it's probably grown like a little bit in the past like month, where I've added like 1 or 2 books to it. But I don't think it's insane to want to read that much, obviously. I think realistically, if you read like, I think I did the math where if you read 10 pages a day every day, then over the course of like your entire life, like let's say you started reading 10 pages a day when you were 20 and you sought to do that every day for your entire life, I think realistically you'd probably read like in probably at least, I would say, 100 books or two. Like I feel like that's too low, because 10, that means like 3,650 a year, and so that means like 36,560, I believe, over the course of 10 years. And then that over the course of 50 years, I don't really feel like doing that math. What is that like? It's like close to 20,000, I think. So close to 20,000 pages over the course of 50 years, if I have my math decently right. And I think the average novel is like around 400 pages. So you would probably read like at least, probably like 50 to 100 books-ish. I could be wrong, but 50 to 100 books, something like that. And that's not bad. That's not bad, dude. That's not bad. I feel like it's way more than that, but I'm just going to do a quick math equation for that. I guess I'm just going to ramble about this for this week, but I don't mind. I'm enjoying it. Whatever. So I'm just going to do 10. Okay. Oh, actually, you know what? You'd read like 500 books, roughly 500. If every book you read was 400 pages, you'd read 450 books, 456 point something books in your lifetime. So I think that's a pretty solid rule to go with, at least for me. That's what I'm trying to stick with. And yeah, I mean, right now, I've talked about it. Right now I'm reading The Shining, but I'm kind of taking a break from it. I'm reading just that Game of Thrones lore book, and I just am always interested in just that deep history of the Targaryens. And honestly, it's weird. Like, I mean, grass is always greener on the other side. And I think it's worth noting that when you miss earlier times in life, I feel that one of the main reasons for that at least I feel like not enough people talk about, is you know what to expect if you were to come back there. I miss my childhood a lot. Like, I miss being a little kid again. And, nobody's upbringing is perfect, but I definitely thought mine was, in retrospect, I think mine was really good. And because I have that to expect, of course I want to go back there. And I know that if I were to go back to that, I would be like, okay, yeah, this timeline's going to be different, but I have a good idea of what's coming. And at least a much better idea than I did at 25, because I don't know what's really coming in my life now. And I think that's just what makes that time better. But I do miss the time in life where I wanted so much adapted. I was like, man, like I want all these, I would love to see this stuff. I want to see these Targaryen kings on screen so bad. And just that glimpse that we got of Aerys II in the flashback of Bran in season 6, I believe, that made me like go crazy. I was like, oh my God, it's Aerys. It's Aerys. He looks a lot different than I thought he was going to look, but it's Aerys Targaryen. And oh my God, he's getting killed by Jaime. Holy crap. You know, I thought that was such a cool moment. And I just think that like just getting that little taste made me savor that moment so much. And now it's to the point where if they announced a Robert's Rebellion spinoff series, of course I would be super down to watch that, and I would be legitimately very excited. But if we rewind back to like 2019 when Game of Thrones finished and they announced it then, we're doing a Robert's Rebellion spinoff, like my brain would have exploded, dude. Like I would have just like looked at the screen and just would have just gone crazy, man. Like I would have, like I'm not even kidding you. Me as a 17-year-old, by the time that show ended, I would have stood up and just looked square in the face of the TV and just shouted the word "Swing!" You know, out of pure excitement, pure excitement. Because you know what? That would just be
hands down
the best news I could hear at that point. But you know what? Just as you get older, things I feel get duller. But I think it's a sad fact of life. But I don't think that's something you should, of course, like let deter you from. I feel like it's a drawback, but at the same time, I feel that it's more of just a moment to pivot. You know, because I think to myself, all right, I'm 25. Like I shouldn't feel this dull about entertainment in life. Like, you know, there must be areas of life where I can still like really enjoy stuff. And honestly, I think what it really comes from, for me at least, is I've noticed that it comes from a place of allowing myself to be stimulated for too long and not feeling the fire of life enough. You know, I noticed when I remember I volunteered on a ranch one time, just for like a few hours to just help out with horses. And I remember just, you know, I had no music playing, nothing. It was just me and this horse on a ranch, and I just was cleaning her tail and cleaning her mane. And it was tough work. And it was something that it was tough because it was way out of my comfort zone. And by the end of it, I was like, you know, because it was a hot day, I'm pretty sure. By the end of it, I was like dirty and sweaty and just kind of felt like kind of the fire of like actual like labor in a way. And I mean, sure, all I was really doing was just washing a horse. It wasn't like I was really doing much else. But the fact that like the work was enjoyable and it was hard, I remember driving home after that and just thinking, and just everything just felt so much better. Like music sounded better. You know, I was more excited to like work on my writing when I got home. It's just, you know, as a whole, the place it just was better. You know, it just was better. And I think that's probably where probably the secret is to have that true contrast in life. It's of course good to do the things you enjoy, but I guess like a beneficial aspect that I'm trying to figure out, that I guess I've kind of figured out now, is making sure that there's enough challenge in life and not making everything so easy. And, you know, a lot of it's just my phone. You know, a lot of the times I just like will even like I'll get up and I'll get dressed and then I'll just sit back in my bed and I'll just scroll on my phone for the next 10 minutes. And then I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, get out of bed, dude. You know, and it's, you know, and I feel like just, you know, and I'm pretty sure like my future and past self are looking on my current self as I do that, and they're just going, but you know what?
That's life.
That's life. But, you know, I remember seeing like this I was listening to like this philosophy video while I was in the gym, and it was titled "You've Forgotten What Fire Feels Like." And it basically just talked about how in life, if you really want to enjoy the joyful things in life, you can't just constantly stimulate yourself all the time. You're just going to get bored. And when it gets to the point where like it's rare that you get really excited for something, then there's a problem. And I feel like in my case, I got to just do stuff that's more challenging. And I just got to stop like constantly stimulating myself. So I try to just not like listen to anything when I read. I try not to constantly have my headphones in like I used to. When I work, it's just like the only thing I allow myself to listen to if I'm working is maybe some music to kind of help me get in like the mindset for writing. But most of the time I just try to just work with silence. And that's just kind of it. And I feel, and that definitely really helps for sure. It definitely helps. You know, at first I thought I would get back to the point like where it was when I was a kid, where I just like everything was so cool. Because when I was a kid, I didn't have, you know, just because technology, I didn't have as much access to content. You know, I just had like, you know, I mean, of course I had a really, really good life, of course, growing up. But when I was a kid, I had like my little desktop computer that I would watch YouTube on. I had like my movies. I had like some video games. I had a good amount of video games actually. And then I had like a bunch of toys and all that stuff. And that's still like a lot for sure. But compared to now, where, you know, I just have like I could basically find any movie I've ever wanted to watch and just watch it right then and there, versus like having to like hope my mom would buy me this one, you know, video, like this one movie, or hope that my dad allows me to get this one video game that I really want. And same went for toys and everything else. Now just the fact that I can get any of it at any time makes it a lot less interesting. You know, it's a comparison I would give to it is that if you just eat dessert all the time, nothing is appetizing after a while, you know, or if you just like only eat the best made stuff in the world, after a while, it's not that great, you know, and it doesn't matter how good something is. Like it eventually something has to change. You get bored. It's just the truth. Like you get bored in some way of doing the same thing over and over again. I feel like, at least in my case, even stuff that I've persistently and continuously loved my whole life, they vary at times. They fluctuate in interest and they change. Like when I was a kid, I loved storytelling even then. And I wanted to write, I wanted to basically write like my Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. And I wanted to, you know, write like Star Wars stuff too. And, you know, I still want to do that now and I still enjoy that, but there's also, it's changed. You know, there's parts of my, I guess, artistic integrity or artistic goals that have changed. Like I want to write this psychedelic Western novel. I really am interested in working on that. I've been working on a kind of Lovecraftian, surrealist, cabin fever kind of story for a little while now, and that's been really interesting. And I've been working on like a detective, like occultism book also. I'm almost done writing a script for a kind of Donnie Darko meets Stephen King's It meets like, I guess, Hereditary kind of book, or it's kind of a mixture of Pumpkinhead, Stephen King's It, and I would say like Donnie Darko. I know I said Hereditary, but not really. Donnie Darko in the sense that it's just very surreal and kind of dreamlike and weird. Stephen King's It, because just the villain is kind of just this chaotic, crazy, colorful character who's very kind of ethereal and kind of interdimensional also. And Pumpkinhead in the sense that it's a demon conjured out of revenge, and it's also just very colorful and campy at times. And, you know, I know that if even like my teenage self, like my 15-year-old self, wanted to write, he still wanted to write, of course, then and create stories. But I'm sure a few of those he would just be like, what? I don't want to write that. But it changes. But I guess what's persistent is just the love of story. But even that morphs over time. It morphs, man. You know, I sound like I've lived the life of 10 men, but I really haven't. I'm 24, almost 25, and it feels like I'm already 25, but I'm close enough. It's like a month, and it's like a little under 2 months away. It's like a month and 3 weeks away. It's close enough, man. But I miss that, though, with the Game of Thrones universe as an example. I miss looking at this entire history of the Targaryen kings with all this lore and just all this interesting stuff and just being like, oh my God, this is so cool. like this huge, epic, like huge chunk of history of the Targaryen dynasty is so interesting and over the top and epic and cool, and it ended right before the start of the main series of Game of Thrones, which puts the Game of Thrones setting in a very interesting place. But that alone just made everything about the Targaryens so interesting. Even reading about Aemond One-Eye was so interesting. And now that we have the on-screen adaptation of him, it's so cool to see that. But it kind of makes it not as good now. You know, I feel it's weird, man. This is why I've continuously thought about, living a lifestyle that's just more minimalist. Just having less. And I'm a collector at heart. I like to collect a lot of things, but I guess the compromise to that is I would want to do. I guess the compromise to that is I would still collect stuff, but I guess I'm just thinking about this purely in terms of just entertainment. Like I'm addicted to dopamine stuff. Like I'm addicted to just constantly being stimulated, and I'm trying to slowly get off that. And it's freaking hard, man. It's so hard, and it makes me just friggin' go insane sometimes, just out of pure boredom. It totally sucks. It really does, man. It really does. But at the same time though, whenever, like the new Mortal Kombat 2 movie that's coming out this Friday that I'm so excited to watch, I look at that and I just go, give me it. But it's pretty rare for me to think that of a new movie a lot of the time. I was pretty excited for a lot of the movies that came out this year, but the one that really takes the cake is Mortal Kombat 2. And I think that's just because I'm a huge Mortal Kombat fan. But regardless, I definitely get excited for stuff still. I just have kind of realized, you know what, I need to take it down a notch. I need to just like not consume so much, And most of it's just the phone, dude. I'm low key thinking about getting a flip phone, dude, a freaking flip phone. Or just, I know that you can just make your phone dumb. Also, I know that you can download an app that makes your iPhone just a much more simple version where like, it's not like a bunch of like social media apps and game apps or anything like that on it. Like you just open it, you do your passcode, and then all you have access to is just like messages, calls, Spotify, and then just like the internet, and that's it. And internet meaning like Safari. Like you can't use like you can't really, I mean, unless you want to use Safari on like the YouTube on Safari, which I don't want to do, but honestly, like outside of that, like you pretty much only would use like Safari just for like searching and looking stuff up like I would. So I'm considering doing that, to be honest, because I mean I can do all the Vicky's Dungeon social media from my iPad and my laptop. So it's pretty out there, man. It's pretty out there. Let's talk about something else though. Let's get on a different topic. I would have had coffee this episode like I normally do, but I'm struggling to kick the caffeine, and it's a lot better now, but eventually I just got to get off it, man. It's so freaking hard. Even just only drinking caffeine every other day is hard for me. It's tough, dude. It's tough. I think it's just because now I'm doing school, I'm working, I'm just like constantly doing stuff all the time that adds to it. The time I remember over Christmas break, I was able to go like a while without it, like over a week without caffeine. And I think that's because I didn't really have much stuff to work on. Of course, like I was looking at like job applications, and I was putting together like my portfolio, and I was, writing and stuff like that. But I think just the fact that I didn't have to go to my job because, it was closed for the break, and also, didn't have school assignments, just made it so that there was such less of a need for caffeine. I think my main problem is I just can't find a good decaf coffee. That's what it really is. My decaf coffee blend, I'm not a fan. Don't like it. I think I just got to find a different decaf coffee blend, perhaps. And I'm also excited to, I mean, I've already I already am really trying to watch my money right now, but like, I'm one of the stupid things I want to purchase is I really just want to get a giant coffee mug, and I mean like comedically large, but not too big that I can't hold it. I would still use it while working or whatever, and I would just probably fill it with just like I don't know, like water or something like that. but I'm hoping to get one of those. I found one today on eBay, and it had no printing on it. I had found some in the past, but they had like printed words on it that said like, you know, something stupid or generic. And I found one on eBay today that had no like words on it or anything. It was just plain, which is the one I wanted. And what was I gonna say? And it was $36. I haven't bought it yet, but I really want to. It was $36 though. Like I don't want to pay $36. I would have paid $20, maybe $25 for it, but 36, and that's without even shipping, dude. So probably like $50 probably with shipping. It just makes me feel like it's not even worth it. But you know what? It's one of those things that I've wanted for years, and we have one life to live. So if you can get it, just frickin' get it, man. Just go for it. And get to the point in your life where you can look back on things like that and just think,
what a story, Mark.
Because that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about. Like, I want my life to be filled with adventures so that, you know, when I'm done telling my kids my life story, like when I'm an old man, I want my kids to look at me and just say,
what a story, Mark.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I hear. Or I at least want them to think that it was
pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. Oh man. I hope that the response of my kids while I'm telling my story isn't,
say it, don't spray it, brother. Dang. I need a towel now.
I just wanted to use that soundbite. But yeah, I'm really excited for the Mortal Kombat movie though. The Mortal Kombat 2. I gotta check that out. I hated the first one that came out a few years ago, but there are aspects of it that I've grown to really like. And this second one looks so good. Like the trailer looks so awesome, man. Like the trailer looks...
This is freaking awesome!
That's what I was thinking. When I was watching the trailer the other day, I want to watch that, dude. And I really want to see it in the 4DX, you know, version of the theaters now. Because those, like those have smoke coming out, like into the theater, like during aspects of a movie. Like I'm guessing if there was like a part with like fire or whatever in a movie, they'll have like smoke come out. They also will literally drop like though it's not enough to like get you like really wet or anything, but if there's like a scene where it's raining, the ceiling will literally like drop like very light, like kind of sprinkles on you of water. Not enough to get you like super wet, but enough for you to feel the water itself. And also they'll like blow wind in your face and just all that stuff. And they also, of course, like move the seats, and they have stuff in the seats that kind of like punch you from behind a little bit. I guess I forget what the reason is behind that, but it's really, really cool, and it makes the movies feel just so much more immersive. So I really want to see Mortal Kombat 2 in that setting. Yeah, I really want to do that. I might try to do it this week. I mean, I'm already gonna go home this week for Mother's Day, so I definitely am gonna try to check that out for sure. But anyways, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm super excited for the Mortal Kombat movie, though. I think it's going to be good. I already got the Shao Kahn popcorn helmet and popcorn bucket, which is it's a samurai helmet, and it's his samurai helmet that he has in the games, and then you just open the top of it, and then your bucket is underneath it, and then you just eat popcorn out of that. And it's really cool. It's really cool. It costs like $50, but you know, it's like the only time I was like, I need this popcorn bucket. All the other popcorn buckets, I feel like, are really cool. I thought the Batman one was really cool. The Dune one was, of course, freaking weird. And what else? I mean, the Devil Wears Prada one is just a purse, but I guess what else can you really expect? But the Mortal Kombat one is sick, man. I'm so excited for that new movie. Despite the last movie not being super amazing, I'm super hopeful of this because the trailer looks so good. Like, the guy that got to play Shao Kahn is perfect for Shao Kahn. And also, Baraka looks great. Katana looks great. The fight scene with, the glimpses of the fight scene with Scorpion and Noob Saibot looks so great. The Netherrealm looks awesome. Like, it all looks really, really good. I'm super duper excited for it, dude. I doubt that I'm going to walk out of that movie, you know, feeling angry or anything like that. I think this is just going to be a much better version. I think this is going to be really good. I'm really excited. And of course, Carl Urban as Johnny Cage, I think he's going to be great. Pretty good stuff. But anyway, I'm going to end the show just a little bit early this week. I'm just super tired, and I got to go do other stuff after this, so what can you do? But I hope you guys enjoyed this short and sweet episode of mostly me just rambling about my philosophies of life. But yeah, anyway, next week, I sadly will be out of town, but I will be back in town the week after for the next show. And we'll probably be reviewing Mortal Kombat 2 by that point. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I'll see you guys next week. And as I've always said, I guess like the piece of advice I would give this week is largely what I was saying earlier. I think it's really good to know. And I mean, we all know this. I mean, I feel like one of the kind of unexpected philosophical things about life that you learn as you get older is you can't have light without dark. And a good thing about just crappiness in life is it makes you enjoy good stuff more. If life was constantly happy all the time, if you had like a 1,000-watt smile on your face all the time, life would just get so boring, and that smile would become eventually hollow. And the only reason it would still be there is because your muscles would, out of muscle memory, just kind of revert to that default state. Anyway, your default state would just be a smile at that point. And anyway, but I'm not saying like, I'm not going to just say like, you can't have good without bad. I'm not going to say that. I'm saying, invite some healthy pain into life. And what I mean by that is, stuff that is beneficial to you in a struggling way. Stuff that you enjoy, but the struggle of it builds you as a person and makes you just enjoy life more because of the struggle itself. Like in my case, after that one day at the ranch, afterwards, everything just felt better. Colors were brighter, I guess, and, music was better. I was more excited to work on writing, and I just was in a great mood the rest of the day. I remember like my favorite bodybuilder and one of my, I guess, like personal heroes is Tom Platz. And he was known for having like these enormously developed legs. And if you watch videos of his leg workouts, like that guy was literally like and I'm not exaggerating, literally insane in the gym. This guy would be screaming at the top of his lungs because he would just be going so hard on just, the guy would do like 40 reps of 400 pounds on the squat rack. Like that's insane. Like that's something you never see. Like it's crazy. And as a result, he like just doing these insane workouts of like so many reps and such insane intensity. He said that, I've been scared to death before every leg workout. I'm not excited to do it. I'm scared to death to do it because I know how insane it's going to be. It's going to just be 3 hours of pure, just out of this world intensity. And he said, but the fact that I would walk out of the gym at the end of that and know that I gave it everything I had. And on top of that, the fact that the result of giving it everything I had made that workout so incredibly intense to the point where it just was crazy. Those two things put together made me enjoy life so much more. He goes, I would be in a great mood for a week after that because of just how insane that workout was. And as a result, on top of him being in a great mood, that guy built the greatest legs in the history of bodybuilding. Not just the biggest and most developed, but just the best developed, like in terms of just symmetry and all that stuff. He was the guy to popularize leg training. Like before Tom Platz, the emphasis of bodybuilding was on the upper body, and then your legs were more meant to just kind of look proportionate, and that was kind of it. He was the guy that just went crazy with the quadriceps. But anyway, what was I going to say? But yeah, like, I mean, but of course, I'm not saying like go insane on everything, like workouts or anything like that. I'm just saying be open to stuff that sucks to do but is beneficial. And it was beneficial to him in the sense that, of course, outside of him being in a great mood, because he was a bodybuilder, him working out like that like made his body grow huge, intensely large legs. And I mean, he had to train like once every 2 weeks only and able to do that. He had to recuperate for a long time after every workout. But I just think it's a good example of why it's good to just focus. It's good to just accept. I I think it's an unsung part of developing a work ethic. It's that learning to embrace the heat of working and struggling in order to achieve something. Because not only will that struggle and hard work will, of course, get you at least something out of it in terms of accomplishment, but also, like, when you're done working, like, just you're in a good mood the rest of the day, or at least you enjoy stuff noticeably more than you did before. So, that's just my thing, man. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just saying, don't constantly stimulate yourself. Embrace, the heat in life, and embrace the struggle if it's because it's all for the expanding of your horizons and those being in how you enjoy things and your development as a human. But that's just me talking. You, of course, can disagree with me all you want. And if you agree with me, great. If you don't, that's awesome, man. It's also cool. We are judgment-free zone in the Vicky's Dungeon. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show this week, and I'll see you soon. Have a good week, and tune in next time for when I review Mortal Kombat 2. See you later.